Greetings and salutations. Episode 6 of the Fibre Guys Corner with your host, me, Adam Foster. I am pretty hopped up on caffeine today, guys, so I am super focused, and there's a very good chance I'm not going to do my usual thing of going off on a huge tangent, which is something I've really been working on. Today I'm answering a question that came via letter, which has actually been really, really nice because I don't really receive many handwritten letters. I mean, maybe 20 years ago, but not today with Facebook Messenger and emails and stuff like that. So that's actually been really nice. So let's get into the podcast, guys. Let's get this question answered because it's a super good one and it's probably quite applicable to you listening. So today's question comes from Mr. Paul Swales, written by hand, and Mr. Swales, you have some beautiful cursive, and that is really, really nice to read. So, letter goes, Dear Adam, I have been recently diagnosed with fibromyalgia by the head of rheumatology. My question is as follows: why does my doctor keep telling me that the pain is in my head? It most definitely is not. It is very much in my joints, muscles, pretty much everywhere. This isn't something I'm making up, so why don't they believe me? But more importantly, Adam, how can I get them to believe me? Thanks in advance, Paul. Right, this is a pretty good question, really, and it's something I hear a lot of. But to answer this question, we really have to ask another question, which might seem a bit odd. What is pain? That's a really good place to start. Is it an emotion? Well, not really. Some definitions have it down as a sensation, but still, that doesn't really cover it. I think our best explanation for what pain is it's an experience. It's an experience at a subjective level. And the thing is, in truth, there is no such thing as a made-up pain. That's not how it works. There's no such thing as a psychosomatic kind of pain experience. Pain is 100% real. So, if you are in pain and you are experiencing pain, then guess what, guys? You are experiencing pain. And I think a lot of the time when it comes to doctors and other healthcare professionals trying to explain pain, I think a lot of the time there's a lot of miscommunication going on between kind of professional and patient, or kind of, therapist and client, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of the times, and I've actually had this as well, where I've left thinking, well, he thinks I'm a complete lunatic. But the thing is, if you experience it, it is real. And I think a lot of the time, sometimes it can be ego through a practitioner or a doctor, and they will use big fancy words where when you leave, you'll be like, well, I didn't really understand that, but what I'm taking from it is that he thinks I'm making it up. When actually that's not the case, and that could quite easily be resolved by explaining pain in a way that people can actually understand. It's one of the reasons why I really like analogies and stories, because they're really good ways to explain complicated things, because pain is complicated, to people in a way that they can go, got ya, right, I know exactly what you're saying. So I think a quick overview of pain might really, especially chronic pain, might be a good place to start with this question, Paul. So the thing is, we used to use a model called the Cartesian model for pain. And old Rene Descartes, he came up with things like pain receptors, where we thought if I hit you in the foot, Paul, with a hammer, then I'd activate a pain receptor. That would then go and tell your spinal cord and tell your brain, hey, look, you're in pain, and then you'd experience it. So also called Cartesian dualism. However, with decades and decades of research that we've now got, we now know that actually Rene Descartes, although he was the godfather of the scientific method, he kind of did a little boo-boo through no fault of his own. You can't get angry at somebody with working with the knowledge they had at that time. Obviously, if they continue to spout that when the evidence is contradictory, then that's just ignorance. But poor Rene didn't have the available research we've got today. But we know now that there are no pain receptors in the body. They just don't exist. What actually happened was Rene confused and conflated pain with nociception. So, rather than pain receptors, I want you to understand that we have so there are no nerves that send pain to your brain or into your body. That's not how it works. In the same way, you can't have happiness come into your body, you can't have depression or anxiety or hunger. It's outputs of the brain. It's what your brain does with it. It's 100% real. So we do have special nerves called nociceptors, and this is what Rene confused with by calling them pain receptors. So pain and nociception, or cut it down to the nerves, nociceptors, are two completely separate things, and you don't need nociception to experience pain. A lot of the time with acute pain, it will happen. So let's say, Paul, imagine you are running through the woods. You're nice and healthy, you know pain, and you're just running through the woods, and you're really enjoying yourself, and you fall over and you hit your shin off a tree that's fallen over in the forest. Now, we have nerves, so if I was to just touch your leg, then we'd activate nerves that would go up through spinal cord to your brain and tell you, look, something's going on, and then you would produce the feeling of me touching your leg. It doesn't have to travel back down. Nociceptors are very special nerves. They're what we call high threshold nerves. They detect what you call noxious stimulus. That's anything that could be potentially dangerous. Excesses in temperature, excesses in chemicals, vibrations, stretch, pressure. So the thing is, if Paul's running through the woods, guys, and he falls over and he smashes his shin off a tree, then what's going to happen? He is going to get, well, nociception. It's going to activate. What's going to happen is a little nociceptor is going to do its job, create action potential that's eventually going to reach the brain and say, look, brain, something potentially dangerous is going on at your shin. I only come up to talk to you when there might be something wrong. This is one of them times. That is what nociception is. It is just nociceptors telling your brain that, look, something might be wrong. Your brain can completely ignore this, or it can go with it. And most of the time, it will do something with this. So this is what we would really call acute pain. So Paul's fell over, he's hit shin, nociception's happened. Now his brain has an important decision to do. What should I do? Well, what's going on? Let's get some context of the situation. Where are we? We're in the woods. Is there anybody that can help us? Not really. What's going on at the tissue level? Oh, well, actually, it's a little bit damaged. All right, so on this occasion, it's a pretty good idea to produce a bit of pain and stop Paul touching his leg. If there's a cut on it, it'll stop him getting infected, and it'll keep him safe. So that's a really good example of nociception followed by pain. But then you can have nociception without pain. So if a year later, Paul's completely healed from his trip on the log, and he's running through the woods again, and he's running, but halfway through his run, he looks behind and he sees 4 or 5 guys all chasing him with baseball bats, shouting at him. His heart rate's going to go up a little bit. He's going to get a little bit kind of anxious. He's going to run a bit faster. And if he falls over and he hits his shin off that log again, then nociception is going to happen. His brain's going to go through the same process. Right, what is going on here? Right, context, where are we? We're in the woods. Oh, look, we fell over on that again. Shit, right, what happened last time? Well, we did produce pain to stop him getting kind of further damage, stop it getting infected. Oh, wait, there's an extra variable in this situation now. We're getting chased by a lot of angry people with baseball bats. Right, what's more important on a survival hierarchy? Protecting Paul from touching his leg, potentially getting it infected or damaging it more, or not producing pain so that Paul can get away and not get murdered or beaten up by these lunatics with baseball bats. On a hierarchy, it makes no sense for your brain to produce pain if there's a worse situation looming. So what will happen is Paul will have nociception and his brain will go, no, not bothering him with pain, let's just flood ourselves with adrenaline, let's get the hell out of here. And that's a good example of nociception without pain. Another great example is if you walk across the road and you sprain your ankle in the middle of the road. Nociception's going to happen. Your brain's going to go, yeah, actually, we should probably not load any weight on this joint because we'll probably damage it a little bit more. So what we'll do is we'll produce pain and we'll stop Paul from doing that. Fantastic. However, if a car comes flying around the corner at 40 miles an hour, then there's a pretty good chance Paul's brain's going to go, yeah, not bothered about pain, let's just get the hell off this road. And he's going to stop producing pain. He's going to run across the road, he's going to be safe, and that car's going to go past, and then the pain's going to come back. You can even go as far as having pain without nociception. So there's a great story, and it's the one I use a lot actually, of a builder in Australia. And what happened was he shot himself through the foot using a nail gun. So he had a huge nail through his work boots. They took him into A&E. They administered fentanyl and tramadol because he was making such a commotion. And when they got him into the operating theatre, they cut his boot off, and the nail had not actually even penetrated his foot. It had been wedged in between his toes, as in the gap between his toes was not in his body. But his brain had seen that as a visual clue and gone, yep, this is bad, we need to protect ourselves. And it's produced pain. So, super, super quick overview of what kind of acute pain is. That's just kind of everyday normal stub your toe on the coffee table type acute pain. And the thing is, if you get a paper cut, once that tissue is healed, then it's more than likely not going to hurt anymore, because there is no kind of reason to protect you with pain, because it's not needed. Now, this is where chronic pain differs. So chronic pain, and the key's in the name, guys. Chronic meaning not really, really bad, means long duration. So what happens is, after, say, 6 months, and you've had an injury that heals, well, then the pain should most definitely stop. However, once we cross the borders into chronic pain, it becomes a lot less about what's actually going on at the tissue level in certain cases, and it becomes more about different contextual factors, depending on if you're a top-down or a bottom-up modulator. And by that, I mean, a lot of the time, especially with things like fibromyalgia, the brain becomes so hyper alert that basically you can, in essence, not really be bothered by what's going on at the tissue level. You could literally see a flight. Well, actually, I used to do this. I used to see a flight of stairs, and then immediately my neck would start hurting. Kind of like a little hint. No, I don't really want to do that, Adam. But then you can also have people who kind of have altered nociception. So nociception can become a little bit kind of quick to fire when it really shouldn't. But then again, that doesn't make a grand difference in the scheme of things. So as a talking point, Paul, just take away that acute pain is what we call nociception, and we just did a brief run through how that works. Chronic pain, once we move out of that, especially when it comes to things like fibromyalgia, becomes way less about what's actually going on in the tissue, and it becomes more about kind of beliefs, past experiences, and what your brain is doing with contextual factors. So the thing is, whatever you experience is real. Paul, if you go walk into the woods tonight at 10 o'clock, drop a load of LSD, you're going to hallucinate. You're going to hallucinate the shit. However, is what you are experiencing real? Absolutely. However, it only exists in your brain. The same way that happiness for you, Paul, only exists in your brain. The same way that love only exists in your brain. The same way that depression only exists in your brain. Nobody will ever argue that depression's not a real thing, because pretty much everybody will experience it at one or, multiple points in their life. However, not everybody experiences pain. So it can kind of become a little bit hard to kind of help people understand. Whatever you experience is real, Paul. When the doctor says it's kind of in your head, he doesn't mean you're making it up. What he means is that you've crossed the boundaries from kind of acute pain, because if you've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, then you will have had blood tests to rule out B12 deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, stuff like that. You will have more than likely been x-rayed. You will have more than likely been through an MRI, and they will have come back completely normal, or at least just normal age-related changes. The odd bulging disc, a little bit of osteoarthritis, which really doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. So when he says it's in your brain or in your head, he doesn't mean you're making it up. What he means is that you've crossed that boundary into chronic pain, and what's happening is you're using more contextual factors to kind of mediate your pain experience. So, in short, Paul, he doesn't think you're crazy. What you could do is, next time you go back to the doctors, you could say, right, can you explain simply in a way that's very easy to understand without using super complicated terminology and kind of wordings? Give me some stories so I can understand that, and any doctor worth his or her weight in gold will be more than happy to do that. This should have education stuff on pain in the GP surgery or in the rheumatology department in your case. It should be there, because the thing is, if you go searching online, you're going to come across loads of articles that are about pain receptors, which we know is not a thing. So it doesn't make any sense filling your head with the wrong information. Actually, Paul, what I will do is, I've got a couple of booklets I've written over the years. I will... Oh, you didn't give me any contact details. Give me an email, Paul, and I will, if you have email, or give me a ring if that's easier, and I will email you over, or post you if that's better, some of the booklets I've wrote over the years, kind of explaining pain in a way that's, really easy to understand, and you can get your head around it so that you can start your road to recovery. Because like I always say, guys, getting recovery really starts with knowledge. It's about understanding what's going on in your body, in your brain. But in short, all pain is real. And a lot of the times when people say it's in your brain, they're not saying it in a massively condescending way. They're not saying you're making it up. They're just telling you the fact. Pain is 100% of the time produced in the brain. It is your brain that creates it. You cannot experience pain if you don't have a brain. We need it. So, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. I hope that helps to clear up a little bit. Hope I haven't gone off on too much of a mental tangent as I normally do. I do really enjoy talking about pain, so possibly let's do a few more podcasts on this. As always, guys, any questions, stuff like that, please shoot me a message on any of the kind of platforms or social media sites. Or hey, write me a letter, as I'm actually quite enjoying reading kind of written word. It's been nice for a change. So that is it for me, guys. I will see you on the flip side. Take it easy, and I'll see you for episode 7.